The handstand push-up is one of the coolest things ever. There isn't many things that will make you feel as cool as doing push-ups while being upside down on your hands. And the best thing about it is, I truly believe it's attainable for almost anyone. And when I say almost anyone, I mean if you have two arms, which isn't necessarily the case for skills like planche or even a front lever, where the leverages make a huge differences and make skills easy for some and nearly impossible for others. So kind of like the muscle up, this is a skill that everyone can have their eyes on, regardless of the height or the weight. It's just gonna take more time for such people. With that being said, in this calisthenics guide, I will try to give you all the advice you need to unlock and train and get better at this skill. So first things first, handstand push-up is a movement that combines strength and balance. You might be able to hold a handstand for 3 minutes straight and be able to perform exactly 0 handstand push-ups because you lack strength. On the other hand, you could also be able to overhead press your body weight for reps, but if you can hold a handstand, you still won't be able to perform any handstand push-ups. This means that handstand push-ups combine two abilities that have minimal correlation between each other, which is balance and strength, as I said earlier. We will have to train both of these, and it's completely fine to train them both at the same training session. I have previously made a guide on handstands, so you can go watch that on my YouTube channel if you want. Alright, let's first take a look at what muscles will be used when performing handstand push-ups. Front part of the delt, triceps, some upper traps, and clavicular fibers of the pec will also play a very small role, but nothing too significant. Without a doubt, the prime mover is the front part of the shoulder, but it's not always the limiting factor, because the most important synergist is the triceps, which needs to finish off the movement in the upper part of the range of motion, where the delt can no longer do much work. What does that mean? It means that we need these muscles to be well developed and have some sufficient size, but this also depends on your current state, and you might not need to have a specific phase of building muscle. There are two best ways to go about this. First one is to use bodyweight pike push-ups progressions, and the other is to work on overhead pressing with either a dumbbell or barbell. And even though pike push-ups are more specific to the handstand push-up, when it comes to hypertrophy itself, it's a smart idea to do variations that allow for a bigger range of motion, especially in the stretch position. And here, that is obviously the overhead press, because most people will not be able to train the pike push-ups with full range of motion from the start. Bigger range of motion usually means that you will be able to recruit more muscle fibers, which of course benefits hypertrophy and strength. But whether you will work on pike push-ups or overhead pressing will depend on your level. It's not easy to do hypertrophy volumes with the pike push-ups without breaking the form. Not everyone can do that. If you can, absolutely do it and overload. That's the best case scenario. If not, consider doing some pike push-ups, or even better, elevated pike push-ups for just sets of 1 to 3, so with quite a bit of reps in reserve to make it almost like a technical work, to really focus on technique. And after that, you can do your hypertrophy volumes with overhead pressing. Focus on such training for ideally 2 to 3 months and try to eat in a slight calorie surplus. You can also work on some other accessories for the front delts and triceps, like the front delt raises, triceps extensions, rope pushdowns, and so on. Once you have built some size, you will have new muscle mass that you can now teach what you want it to do. Start getting more specific. Lower the rep range from 8 to 12, which is for hypertrophy, to roughly 3 to 6. At this point, it might be a smart idea to fully transition to elevated pike push-ups. You can do sets of 4, sets of 5, or you can even do sets of 3 on one training session and sets of 6 on the other training sessions. Your training frequency should be 2 to 3 times per week. I am hesitant to say 3 times per week, as it might be a little bit overkill for most people. Over the course of working with clients, I didn't find a single person who wasn't able to make progress with 2 times per week. Some people can handle more than 2, but 2 will work just fine, so I recommend to start there, and I think you'll be okay. Make sure that your technique is as similar to the real handstand push-up. You want to squeeze everything you can out of specificity. That will most likely include things like leaning forward, keeping your torso decently vertical, keeping posterior pelvic tilt throughout the entire range of motion, and lastly, having a decent amount of elevation to mimic the handstand push-up better. With that being said, your first progressive overload should be increasing the elevation if it's not yet significantly increased, right? Maybe adding 5 to 10 centimeters a week until you reach a decent one. After that, you can start loading them up, considering that your technique is good, of course. You can very simply start adding 2.5 kgs to your progressions every week and try to linearly progress. While you will be working on this as main work, I recommend also working on sets of freestanding handstand push-ups eccentrics for sets of 1 if you can. This is an important exercise that can be implemented earlier on for improving and understanding the technique and understand the path of the handstand push-up, but it's not mandatory to start doing it, and some people will not need it at all if they are a little bit gifted. As weeks go by, as you deload every 4 to 6 week, you can start to do some set of 1 to 2 reps just to wall assisted handstand push-ups as your final progression before attempting the real handstand push-up. And when you feel ready, go for it. So let's recap everything we did. First, you spend 2 to 3 months building muscle specifically for the handstand push-up. Then you spend another few months trying to make that new muscle mass as strong and as effective as possible with neural adaptations doing heavy elevated pike push-ups. While you do that, you also practice the handstand push-up technique with eccentrics. And then after we have reached a decent level, when we can do a couple of reps just against the wall, we attempt the handstand push-up and we succeed. The happy ending, right? Keep in mind that each individual journey will be a little bit different and you should not literally copy-paste any YouTube tutorial to the T. Everyone is slightly bit different and will have slightly different needs. Although individual differences are not the most important thing in training, it certainly is important. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for watching the video until the end, and I will see you next time.